So my name is Kyle Liebers. I'm a junior at Buena Vista University, and I'm double majoring in education and psychology. And this past January, I had the opportunity to go down to Chile through what is called the Global Fellows Program. It's a program between Buena Vista University and the University of North Texas. It's an application process. You have to write an essay about how bioculturalism will affect your life, and then they read those essays and then select a certain amount of students to go down. So there were 6 of us from Buena Vista, and then there were about 35 others from other colleges around the world. So I traveled from Omaha all the way down to the southern tip of Chile, and that is approximately 6,847 miles from Omaha to our final destination. So it was, without a doubt, a very long trip, lots of flying, lots of buses involved. So this is a map of Chile. It's one of the longest countries in the world. And here I have it broken down in half so you can see a little bit. The orange circles are where we visited. We visited 5 different cities in the 4 weeks that we were down there. It was a 29-day trip over the J-term, which is a period where if you stay on campus, you take a class for 3 weeks. Otherwise, you can have travel opportunities like this. So we went down there for 4 weeks. We left on the 28th of January. Here's the 6 students from Buena Vista that went. We left on December 28th, and the day that we left, there was a snowstorm in Omaha. So we flew out of Omaha, and we were on the runway in the Omaha airport for an hour because they had to defrost our plane. I had never flown before, so I was kind of freaking out. I'm like, what's going on here? So we finally leave Omaha, and we had a connecting flight to Houston. Then we flew from Houston to Santiago, Chile. So we are delayed for an hour. So we land in Houston, and our flight from Houston to Santiago was supposed to take off 5 minutes after we landed because of the delay. So we have all of our stuff. We have our hiking packs, our clothes for the month, and we're running across the Houston airport. And if you don't know the Houston airport, it's a very large airport. So you can imagine the 6 of us running across the airport looking like a bunch of pools. But we did make the flight in time, and the flight from Houston to Santiago was 9.5 hours. I found out on that flight that I cannot sleep on planes. So I experienced the 3 crying babies and the 2 people who throw up on the plane. And this is all of us that were at the end of the trip. We all took a picture. So there's people there from Texas, from Peru, from Chile, some people from New York. We were from all over the place, so it really was a Global Fellows experience. So we landed in Santiago at 9 a.m. And our flight from Santiago to Punta Arenas wasn't until 7 p.m. So we had a 10-hour layover in this airport. I thought I was going to die because I'd never been on a plane before. I didn't know what jet lag was. So as I'm walking, the floor feels like it's going out from under me. So every time I take a step, I feel like I'm going to fall down to the first floor of the airport. It was awful. So we get to the airport, and it was snowing in Omaha. So we're in our jackets and our jeans and our long sleeve shirts. We get to Santiago, and it's 87 degrees. So we're all very hot. So I decided that I was going to go to the bathroom and change into some shorts and t-shirt. So I get into the bathroom, and it smells terrible. And airport bathrooms, not the cleanest, yes. But so I get into this bathroom, and it's ungodly how bad it smells. And so I'm in the stall, I'm changing, and I see a sign on the side of the stall, and then there's a trash can in the stall as well. And I was really confused because the sign is in Spanish, and I took French in high school, so that didn't matter. So I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the trash can, and this trash can is overflowing. From what I got from the picture, and then what I found out later, is the sewage is so poor in Chile that you can't flush toilet paper down the toilets. So they have trash cans that you have to throw your toilet paper in. So that was my first experience in Chile. So I go and I change, and so just keep in mind, I haven't slept since like 8 a.m. the previous day. So it's been over a full day that I haven't slept. And I'm also dying of thirst and thinking I'm going to die because I don't know what jet lag is. So we go down, me and one of my friends go down to a convenience store that's in the airport. So we walk down, and I'm like, I need something to drink. So we go, and there are two types of water. There is water that is cone gas water, and there is water that is syngas water. I don't speak Spanish. I don't know what this means. So I get a liter of cone gas water. I open it up, we walk out, I open it up, I drink it. I just about lose my mind because I'm so thirsty, and this water was carbonated water. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted in my life. And at this point, I just need something to drink because nothing was making sense, and I'm like, I just need something to drink. So we go back into the convenience store, I see orange Gatorade. I'm like, that looks normal, I'm gonna get me some of that. So I get some Gatorade, and then we go back to the other end of the airport where our professors and the rest of our group is, and then I get the whole water thing explained to me that cone gas means with gas and syngas means without gas. So then we're there, we're sitting there for 10 hours because we can't leave the airport, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to fall asleep, but all around me, I'm not understanding a single word that's being said because everyone's speaking Spanish. And at this point, I'm like, I have made a terrible decision to come on this trip because I do not understand what anybody's saying. And so we're there, and we're just trying to occupy our minds. There was no Wi-Fi in the airport. So there's literally nothing to do. We were talking to each other. We're all cranky at this point, so that wasn't much fun. But so I'm listening to these people talk. I'm like, I gotta pick up on something here. I'm gonna be here for a month. I have to be able to understand something. And it was about the 6th hour we were in there, I heard somebody say the number 27 in Spanish. And that's all it took. And then I was able to take a deep breath and be like, okay, you were going to get through this because you can understand enough to get you through what you need to get through. Because I knew how to say, hello, how are you? And where's the bathroom? And I knew about 6 colors. So I was like, I can do this. I can do this. So we flew then to Punta Arenas, and we'll go back here. It is the second orange dot there on the right, so not all the way down, but pretty much in the southern tip of Chile. So this is our hostel that we stay at. They're not called hotels down there. In the smaller towns, they're hostels. I don't know why, but this was Hostel Hang. There was a cafe attached to it as well. So we get there at about 11 p.m. and we meet up with the Texas kids and everybody else that's staying with us, and we get our room assignments. There's some rooms that are for 6 people, some that are 4, and some that are for 2. And I was at the end of the alphabet, so I got a room with one other guy. So we go up there. It's not a very big room, and we're kind of getting accommodated. And we're like, oh, this isn't bad, this isn't bad. When we're looking around, the walls are made of styrofoam. So you can hear everything that goes on everywhere else in this place. And so then it's also been over a day now that I haven't showered, so I said to my roommate, like, hey, I'm going to go and take a shower. He's like, that's fine. Open the door to the bathroom. It's bare 2x4s. There's nothing on it. Like, you're looking to get a sliver in your foot if you step on it. So they had given us enough towels that we laid out towels all over the bathroom floor so we could walk across and be able to get to the shower. There was about 5 minutes of hot water, but at least we had water. So, and then we went to sleep. Everybody else was showering at that point too. While they were in styrofoam, we heard all the water going through the pipes all night long. So the next day, we do a little bit of introductory stuff, and this is the first meal that they give us. This is that night. This is a traditional Chilean meal. So we start in the middle there, that's a baked potato. If we're going to go clockwise, then it was mashed potatoes cooked in lard, a bit of beef, some lamb. I started eating before I took this picture. There were 6 of those sausages. They're about 4 to 6 inches long. Then there is a chicken breast, and under all of that, there's 12 oysters. Before we went to the restaurant, we were told it's very disrespectful if you don't try at least everything. So here we are, suffering from jet lag, just wanting to relax, and they take us to this restaurant, and we have to eat all this food. It was incredible. That was just for me. That wasn't like for the whole table. That was just for me as well. So, and I'm not a big guy, so you can imagine the struggle that was going on there, trying to eat all that. And then the next day, we got on a ferry, and we went to the Magellanic Penguin Island. There's 130,000 penguins on this island. You walk in, and there's a path that goes all the way up. There's a tour guide that looks like they have zero fun with their job. They tell you not to touch the penguins. And then you walk up to this lighthouse thing, and then you walk back down. And there's two other different types of birds that are on this island as well. There's seagulls, and then they're called squaws. And these squaws will fly around. It's actually kind of scary. They're probably about the size of a vulture, maybe a little bit bigger. And they'll circle around, and they'll look for penguin babies that are unattended, and they will swoop down, and they will pick the babies up, and they will eat the babies in midair. Really kind of scary. So these are just circling around the whole time you're walking around the island. So that was an interesting experience to be a part of, because penguins are my favorite animal. So I was really excited that we were going to this island, and that my partner and I, each had a partner from BB, and we had to do a presentation when we got back to college, and her and I focused on the relationships that we saw all over Chile, and that was one of them, about how these three different birds kind of keep each other's populations in check because they all work together. They're competing for food, and then the squaws are taking away the penguin babies. So we were in Punta Arenas for 2 days. It is December 31st at this point. The BB students, our professor for some reason thought it was a good idea for us to take a ferry trip. We took a 24-hour ferry trip through the Beagle Channel, which is the route that Darwin took. So it's just before Port of Williams, so that southernmost part that we had, it's just before then. And we went through there. We spent 24 hours on a ferry, and we saw humpback whales. We saw 2 humpback whales when we were on there. The guy that is in charge of the program, he's known all over Chile, so he went up to the captain when we saw these whales, and he told the captain to stop the boat so we could take pictures, because nobody else was out on deck at that point. It was just the BB people. And he's like, you need to stop these boats so these Americans can take pictures of the whales. So that's what we saw that, and then there's a lot of mountains and different icebergs that we saw when we were on the ferry. And also when we were on the ferry, there's no hot water, so we, yet again, did not have a hot shower. So it's been like 4 or 5 days that I haven't had a hot shower, and I'm getting a little cranky. So we get to Port of Williams. All the other students are already there because they took a plane, like a 2-hour plane ride instead of a 24-hour ferry. So they were there, and we get there, and there's 8 rooms total in this hostel. It's a small hostel, and all of the hostels that we stayed at would not pass health safety inspections here in the United States. Really scary stuff. So the room that I was in, we get there, everybody else is already there, of course, except for the 8 of us that are from BB, the 6 students and the 2 professors. So from the other side of the altar to where I'm standing is how big the room I stayed in was. There was 3 bunk beds, a dresser with a TV on top of it, and then a chest of drawers that was probably about this wide, all in this room. And there's 6 of us staying in there. Keep in mind, you can't flush toilet paper. There's also a bathroom here, so just keep that in mind. So I'm there, still haven't had a hot shower in 4 days. And I go into the bathroom, like, hey, everybody, can I take a shower? Is that fine? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So I go, pull up on the thing to get water, get a nice little trickle. I'm like, hey guys, do we not have any water, or what's going on? They're like, oh no, we haven't had any water since we've gotten here. Awesome. So what we did is we took a metal clothes hanger, we jerry-rigged it so we could pull up on the shower so we could get at least a little stream and stand there, hold on to this metal clothes hanger, so we could get at least a little bit of cold water to shower off on. We then found the pilot light in the kitchen and decided to light those, and then we had hot water the rest of the time. We had to take things into our own hands quite a few times. And this is the picture when we were in Punta Arenas. We were walking around, we have these like decorative cement blocks on the sidewalk, and they kind of blend in with the sidewalk, and I was looking at a storefront and I wasn't paying attention, and I caught my foot on one of these cement blocks. And I took this picture like 8 days after this happened for my poor mother. She was worried enough. So I didn't want her, my whole foot was black and blue, and I'm pretty sure I broke that big toe. So just keep that in mind while I'm telling you all the things that we did on this trip. Just keep that in mind if this happened at the beginning of the trip and as we go on. So we were in Port of Williams for 2 weeks. Southernmost city of the world for 2 weeks. We did a lot of field work. This picture was taken the end of the first week. We climbed a small mountain. I think we went up to about 500 feet altitude. And we get up to the top. There's no trees or anything because it's so windy that trees can't grow there. It's just rock. It's hard, sharp rock. So we're walking around, and it starts to pour. There's a pour rain, and our professors had told us make sure you get waterproof equipment because water-resistant equipment will only be water-resistant for so long, and then you will get wet. The Texas kids had water-resistant things, so they got soaked when we were up there. We all had waterproof things, so we were up there, and then it started to pour. So then, of course, we had to walk back down 500 feet in the pouring rain. But we talked about some of the plant, because there were some like mosses and things up there, so that was some of the things that we talked about, how the ecology kind of changes as we went up this mountain. Another day of field work, we did some stream conservation, stream ecology. And we had two professors that went, one that was an English professor and one that was a biology professor. The biology professor had told me, because I was the only science student that didn't go on the trip, she said, just do as many things as you can, make the most out of all the opportunities. So we get down to the stream, and they're like, does anybody want to put on these waders and go in the stream and fish for things? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And everybody else is like, crazy. So the highest point of the stream was about where those bibs went up to. And the current was pretty strong. So we get in, and you go down to the bottom of the riverbed, and you stir up the rocks, and then there's that little net, and then you dump the net into like a box thing, and then we had magnifying glasses and microscopes, and we'd see all the little, they're called macroinvertebrates that were swimming around that we had just disrupted at the bottom. So I was in there the whole time, having a blast, losing things, but it was a lot of fun, and that was like 4 hours I was in there, and it got kind of cold by the end. But the next day, we had 4 different groups that we were split up into, so not all 35 of us were at the stream and all that. So the next day, we went with the birds. We woke up at 6 a.m. That was our earliest morning that we had. We woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and went out to a different part of this nature reserve where there were nets set up. And the birds would fly into these nets, and then what we would do is we would collect them and we would tag them, and then we would record all of the information about them, male, female, what species they were, just to see what the different types of birds that were in this region of Chile during this time of the year. And I think this is one of my favorite pictures that was taken throughout the whole trip, and I didn't even take it. Before this trip, I was deathly afraid of birds. And then I had this in the back of my mind the whole trip, that you got to take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you. So the professor that was in charge of the birds is like, does anybody want to hold one of the birds and release it? I'm like, I guess I'll do it. So as you can see, you hold the bird's head in between your middle and pointer finger, and I think this was kind of the most awe-inspiring part of the trip for me, because I was holding that bird, and I'm pretty sure it knew I was scared, and I could feel that it was scared. I could feel its heart beating in my hand, and it turned its head, and our eyes kind of met. And it was that moment of like, I knew it needed me, it needed to trust me, because obviously it's not very big, and I could just squeeze my hand and crush it, and it would die. But I think it also knew that I was scared, and so it was kind of this give and take trust that we had. I know it's kind of strange talking about it, but it was just one of those moments where I was so close to it, so close to something that I had been afraid of for a while, and I just think that was one of the best experiences for me. So then the second week, with the whole time we were in Puerto Williams, the whole hype was we were going to climb this massive mountain. We were going to climb a mountain going up to 1,200 feet altitude. So the day before we went up the mountain, it rained. And we're getting ready to go up the mountain. We had our hiking packs. They're like 50 pounds. Let's see a picture of it here on the next slide, what it looked like. We're getting ready to go, and the director comes and says, guys, we're going to be about an hour late. And we had all thought, well, it's just people in Chilean time, because that was the thing when we got there. Chilean time is actually a thing. They just show up whenever they want to. Like, they're late. They're like 45 minutes late. They're like, oh, I'm here. And they just expect that to be normal. And, us from the United States are like, okay, you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. So we're just like, okay, they just weren't ready for us. And so then she comes back in, we're like, hey, what's the problem? She's like, oh, it's so windy, we don't want you to go up because trees might fall on you. So we're like, oh, great. So as we're climbing up the mountain, you can hear the trees like creaking against each other. And that's all that was in the back of my mind the whole time I'm climbing up. I'm like, a tree's going to fall on me. That's going to be the way I die here. So we climb up this mountain, and it had rained the previous day, so it's incredibly muddy. And along with that, there's a beaver infestation in Port Williams as well. So there's these beaver holes going up the mountain. They're like 6 feet. They're like 6 feet deep, 2 or 3 feet wide. So you have to jump these beaver holes. You also have a 50-pound hiking pack on your back. And there's mud. At one point, at multiple points, we had all sank in like up to our knees in mud. There's just nothing you could do about it. And at one point, the girl was not paying attention, and she sunk in up to her thighs and started freaking out. And it's kind of, the mud there is kind of like quicksand. It creates a vacuum the more you struggle. So she was struggling, got in up to her hips. She has a 50-pound hiking pack on her back. It took 3 of us to get her out. That was really scary, and she was just freaking out the whole rest of the trip. And she got stuck on the way going back down, too, so she just didn't pay attention. So we get up this mountain, and oh my gosh, there was about 8 times I was ready to quit on this walk up. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. So we get there, and like, campsite's just on the other side of this river. Awesome, I can do this. We get to these logs. These logs were not placed there by man. These logs had fallen because of the beavers that had chopped them down. So these logs are in no way strategically placed to keep you from falling into the river. This river is about 35 feet deep as well. So keep in mind, we've been walking we took a 15-minute break for lunch. The rest of the time we walked. So we walked for 3 hours, about 3 hours and 45 minutes. So about 4 hours, we're walking straight up. So we get here, and you're like stepping on these logs. You step on one end, and you see the other end kick up at the end. You're like, well, can't use that log. So they have this nice little wire that you get to hold on. That's all that's saving you from falling into this river. Talk about adding insult to injury. You just climb 4 hours, and then you got to walk across this. So we get there, and we had 3-person tents. I was with a kid from BB and a kid from Texas, and we put our tent away from everybody else, kind of down by, not like right next to the river, we're not that stupid, but we put it up a little bit on an embankment by a river. And so we go to bed that night, we're all exhausted. We wake up the next morning, it's windy again. They're like, we were planning on going up really high today, but it's really windy, so we're only going to go up to 1,500 feet altitude. And like, it'll just be a nice little day walk. Okay, day walk, in my mind, here in Iowa, we have our nice little paved nature paths. That's not what a day walk is in Chile. We go up 300 more feet, and it's windy, and we go up, and it takes us 2 hours to get to this lake. And they're like, okay, we're going to spend 15 minutes at this lake, and then we're going to go back. Like, it doesn't make any sense. We spent 2 hours walking up there and spent 15 minutes at this lake. So I was upset, because I didn't want to go in the first place. But, so we get to this lake, and then the professors are like, okay, we changed our minds. What we're actually going to do now is a group of you are going to go with the mammal professor, and you're going to go look for ferrets and beavers, and the rest of you are going to go down to the other side of the lake and do some more stream ecology. So I didn't get to go with the mammal group, so I walked all the way across this lake, which took 45 more minutes, and we get there, and it starts snowing. So we get there, and I'm like, this is a bad idea. I called this from the beginning. This is a bad idea. I don't know why we're here. So we had a barometer which measures air temperature and wind. So it was 12 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit above freezing, and 45-mile-an-hour winds where we were at. So we're collecting the macroinvertebrates samples because these are macroinvertebrates we can't find anywhere else on the mountain, of course. So we collect. It starts to snow. They're like, oh, we can't take the samples back. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. So we turn around. We've been collecting samples for about a half hour. We turn around. We can't see the other side of the lake. It's snowing, and it's so windy. So we walk back, or 45 more minutes back, and on the way back, we took a different route. this route was probably about 2 feet wide, not even, a foot and a half. You had to walk foot in front of foot. The wind, 45-mile-an-hour winds is blowing against you into the lake. And so keep in mind the wind chill is well below freezing at this point, so if you fall in the lake, you're going to be miserable because we have 45 minutes back to the lake, other side of the lake, and then 2 hours back to our campsite. And I had fallen in mud going down to the other side of the lake, so I didn't have anything on my hands. My hands were turning all sorts of colors they shouldn't be turning when you're outside. So we're walking back, and we get to the other side of the lake, and it starts snowing harder. We can barely see 5 feet in front of us. And I thought, how are we going to get back to the campsite? We can barely see 5 feet in front of us. How do we know where we're going? We're going to end up stranded on this mountain, and no one's going to find us until we're boned. So we get back to the campsite, and they tell us, okay, go to bed, wake up at 9, and then we'll decide what we're going to do, because we were supposed to go up even higher the next day. And so we wake up. I woke up at about 4 o'clock in the morning, freaking out, because everything is wet. I've never been on a plane, never been hiking, never been camping at this point in my life. I'm not sure this classifies as camping. This is something far more extreme than camping, but that's what they called it. So we're camping, we're in the tent, and I wake up, I'm wet, my sleeping bag is wet, the inside of the tent is wet, everything that I have in the tent is wet. And I'm like, the snow melted, the river rose, we're going to die, we're going to get swept away. So I elbowed the kid sit next to me, and I'm like, dude, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die. And he's like, oh, we're fine. I'm like, okay. So I did not go back to sleep until, I didn't go back to sleep. And then everybody's alarm went off at 9, and we went up. There was 8 inches of snow when we woke up that morning. The Texas kids were freaking out because they had never seen snow before. And they were having snowball fights and all happy, and us Iowa kids were like, this is awful. We can't even get away from this. So we get up, we have breakfast, and then they decide that we are going to head back down the mountain. And the thing here, you maybe can't see it the best, this was the fire that we had. This was our only source of way to cook our food, way to do anything up there on the mountain. And you can see it, there's 35 of us, it wasn't a giant fire. So we walked up, obviously we're all covered in mud, and we're wet, so our boots need to be dried. Well, the fire's not big enough for us all to put our boots in a single row around the fire. So going back down, some of our boots were still wet, and that made for a grand old time. And then there were a couple kids whose boots got too close to the fire and they melted the rubber. So we had a couple rolls of duct tape, and they had duct taped their boots going back down the mountain. So it was one extreme or the other. You had wet boots, or you had really dry boots. And so this is us going back from the day hike. It had stopped snowing because we came down a little bit, so it wasn't snowing as hard. But you can still see the guy who took that picture was probably 100 feet away from me, and it's kind of hard to see me. And this is just an idea how much snow we had up on the mountain. And just keep in mind, we're going back down, and it was still muddy from 2 days before when we came down. You just couldn't see where the giant holes were because snow was covering them. So we all just kind of ran down the mountain and just hoped for the best. So this is my hand when I got back down off the mountain. In nature, sometimes plants and animals will disguise themselves like a dangerous plant or animal to protect themselves. There is a plant on the mountain in Chile called the calafate bush. It's kind of like a rose bush, except the thorns are about 3 inches long. And there's another plant, we never learned the name of that because that wasn't going to hurt us. We just learned don't touch the calafate bushes. So we're climbing up this mountain, sometimes you're falling in, you just need to grab onto something. Everybody had terrible luck, but as you can see, all those little holes are where the calafate thorns broke off into my hand. And the thing was, they would go in so deep that the skin would heal over top of it. I think I pulled one out when I got back to the United States 2 weeks after this hiking trip had begun. And it was so painful because I couldn't grab anything for like 3 days with either of my hands, and that was even with gloves. They went through my gloves as well. So that was a lot of fun to be pulling those out. And we had like 2 pairs of tweezers for all 35 of us, and so we were just in the bathroom just pulling those things out, and that was just a blast. So after we got done with Port Williams, we started our way back up Chile, and we went to Torres del Paine. It's kind of like their national, their Yellowstone. And actually, a few years ago, they had an Iranian soldier there, and as part of the Iranian culture, they don't put out their fires with water; they let them burn naturally. Well, he had a fire. He was camping here, and he let his, was letting his fire go down, and he walked away. Well, his fire sparked back up, and it caught the whole park on fire. So I don't have any pictures of that, but all the trees were like mangled and disfigured because they were able to put the fire out before it took down all the trees, but they were growing back all disfigured and they didn't have any leaves, and they ended up catching the guy, and he's in prison for life. But this is one of the views that we saw. This was the only day on the trip that I was sick, and I was terribly sick. We left the hotel. That was the only day we got a hotel in Chile because it was a big enough city, so we got a hotel. And we left the hotel on a tour bus, and I was like, my stomach does not feel good. This is going to be a long day. And National Park, there's no bathrooms. I had all sorts of stuff all over me. I ended up throwing away all my clothes. It was the only time I slept on travel as well that night because I had nothing left in my body. So I slept for a half hour on the bus. And but looking back now, I mean, you can see that there were views like this all the time. We climbed up. There was a peak that we all stood on. And there's a picture that I didn't put on here because I just look absolutely miserable, where you're supposed to jump up and then take the picture, and everyone else looks so happy, and I look miserable because that was at the end of the day. So then we went back up to Punta Arenas for a couple more days, just the BV students. We got rid of everybody else, so it was just the 6 of us at this point. And we went to a boat museum. And this boat here is the SS Beagle, the one that Charles Darwin rode on when he maneuvered through the Beagle Channel. And this picture, Dong is my compadre there. He had asked our professor if the armor that I had on was real. I had a helmet on. And she said yes, and he promptly whacked me in the head with a sword. And this just kind of goes to show that we just kind of got along and had a little bit too much fun on the trip the whole time. So then in Punta Arenas also there is a statue of Magellan. And there's the Magellan Strait also in Chile. And it's customary to kiss Magellan's toe when you leave Punta Arenas because that means that one day you'll come back. So we kissed it when we left Punta Arenas the first time, and then we thought, well, we better kiss it again so we can have a better chance of coming back. And we stayed at Hostelheim as well the second time, but there were more people in Hostelheim the second time, so we would get Wi-Fi for about 7 minutes, and they'd kick us off because it was so bad. Also, another thing I forgot to mention when we were in Port Williams, the ATM is kind of like here when you go to an ATM, it gives you all $20 bills here. In Port Williams, it gives you $20,000 notes, which is about $35. That's all it would give you. And so, Port Williams being an island, everything had to be ferried there. So it was a little bit more expensive than the rest of Chile, but it wasn't terribly expensive. So every night we went to this mom and pop grocery store, and we would go and we would buy things. And I remember I had started to get a little bit of a cold before we went up the mountain, and I wanted to get a couple packs of Hall's cough drops. I saw them behind the counter, and I just pointed because I didn't know any Spanish. So the lady gave me 2 of them, and I just had a $20,000 note, and I gave it to her. And she's like, no. And I'm like, how much are these cough drops? Like, goodness gracious. So she's like, no, too much. And I'm like, this is all I have. They didn't accept these $20,000 notes on the island. So a lot of times we'd go to the grocery store, if we didn't spend that much, or if we didn't have anything less than a $20,000 note, they would just give us stuff. So I got those cough drops for free. I got a lot of water for free. We got a lot of food for free because we just had these big bills and they didn't want them. So, and then also in Punta Arenas it was the same thing. They had like a flea market type thing, and we were going around and buying souvenirs, and they weren't terribly expensive stuff. You'd give them a $20,000 note and they'd be like, no, it's fine. I'm like, okay. So I just thought that was interesting to be down there. And the mom and pop grocery store, they were so awesome. They'd give us, if there was Like, they got an order of Chips Ahoy, and because a lot of times they just had like Chilean food. So anytime they got American food, they give it to us as soon as we walked in. So we had stuff. So that was pretty cool. This picture is, I think, my favorite picture that I took. We were in Valparaiso, and the sun was setting. And since it was summer down there, and it's so close to the pole, the sun would set at about 11:45 at night, and it would rise at about 4:30 in the morning. So there was hardly any darkness. So, you know, a lot of times we would be up. When we were in Port Williams, we did field work all day, and then we had class until about 8 or 9, and then they just let us do whatever. So a lot of times we were up till, you know, 12, 1 in the morning. And so I just thought this was kind of cool. We were out roaming around Valparaiso, which is the second biggest city in Chile, and I snagged this picture, so I just thought that was kind of cool. And also in Valparaiso, we stayed at this hostel, and it was kind of like a Jenga tower. It was just straight up and down. It was really weird. And they had really narrow cobblestone streets in Valparaiso. So we get to our hostel, and of course I'm on the 3rd floor. So we get all the way up there, and there's like this tunnel through the middle of the hostel. It was the weirdest thing ever. It was like where an elevator should have been, but there wasn't one. So my roommate and I looked down. We can see in everyone's windows in the entire hostel. We could see in everyone's bathrooms in the entire hostel as well. So a couple of the other BD kids were in the bathroom, like, you guys gotta close your window, I can see everything. And they're like, oh my goodness. So, but also on this hostel, we were only there for a day. We went to a house museum, and we went to the beach, and that morning we had roof access on our hostel. So it was straight up. It was really one of the highest buildings there in Valparaiso. So I was always usually the first one up during the trip. You know, I never slept on any of the planes. I only slept on one of the buses. I guess it was like my parental instinct kicking in for the rest of my travel mates. I don't know. But I was always like the first one up. And so I got up at about 4 o'clock that morning. And the trip was coming to an end. And when I went, I was like, this is going to be a good opportunity for me to get closer to God, because I'm not going to be able to have my phone as much as I have here. I'm not going to have all these distractions that I have in the United States. And so we're about 3 or 4 days from being done, and I was just frustrated. I'm like, I have not gotten closer to God like I wanted to. And there's something called the sophomore slump in college. And it says that supposedly that your sophomore year is going to be worse than your freshman year, because you aren't going to feel as motivated, and people aren't going to respect you and utilize you as well as they did your freshman year, because you're not new, and you don't have all these new discoverable talents and skills. And I had found that to be the case at BV. My fall semester, we were, lauding the freshmen and trying to coax them along to get them to do the things, and it was just like, oh, you're a sophomore, we know you can do this, so do it. We're not going to praise you for doing a good job, you're just going to do it, and that's the expectation. And that kind of had been the case in my faith life as well. I just kind of slumped a little bit, and I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity for me to kick that back up and see where I'm at. So I'm up on this roof, 4 o'clock in the morning. You can hear a little bit of the city noise, not really that much. It was really, really peaceful. And there was cloud cover over those mountains there in the back. And I'm like, God, you got to give me something here, because I've been here for about 20 days, and I feel like I haven't gotten much from you. And then as soon as I just put my head down and was just really discouraged, and I looked up, and the clouds kind of faded away from this mountain, and I could see the whole city, and everything was made clear. And at that point, I was like, okay, the highest point in Valparaiso probably, God is here with me, and I knew he was, and at that point, it just was made clear to me that he was there the whole time. He kept me safe on that mountain. He got me through everything, and I think that was just kind of the point that I was looking for throughout the trip, that aha moment, and it didn't come a moment too late. So then we were in Valparaiso that night. We went to the beach, like I said, which was fantastic. It was like 90 degrees there the day that we went to the beach. And then that night we ate at a really nice hotel. And this is the view outside from the window of the restaurant. You can see the ocean there, and then the nightlife coming. That was like a Wednesday night, I want to say. So then, the next day, we drove to Santiago, and Chile is such a long country that we were able to drive from one end of the country to the other in 2 hours, because Valparaiso is on the coast on the west side, and Santiago is on the coast on the east side. So we were able to drive to Santiago in 2 hours, and this is the view from San Cristobal Hill, and this is where there's a 66-foot statue of the Virgin Mary. And before I get to the statue, we were walking through the streets of Santiago the day after we had been in Valparaiso, and I saw the cathedral, Santiago Cathedral, and I ran in, and that was an absolutely beautiful, beautiful piece of architecture. They had 3 different chapels within the cathedral, and then they had the main cathedral. They had some magnificent marble sculptures. So it was just a really kind of awesome experience to build off of the experience that I had in Valparaiso. And while we were in Santiago as well, we were on the bottom. We were going to walk up, and we just got back down from the statue, and I was standing there walking around looking for knickknacks and stuff, and this lady walks up to me, and she's like, ¿Cómo está? Bien? And I was like, hola, bien. That was, hello, how are you? Hello, I'm good. And I had a shirt on that said, Vamos Rafa. Rafael Nadal is a Spanish tennis player, and that was, let's go Rafa in Spanish. I'm like, I'm going to assimilate to the culture here. And so then this lady starts reeling off all this Spanish, and my eyes get huge, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were from the United States. I'm like, it's fine. So here in this picture, she's doing this to her eyes. She said she started speaking Spanish to me because she said my eyes were so beautiful that she thought that I was from Chile. And all of my friends, you can see the guy laughing in the corner there is our tour guide. They were all laughing at me because they were eating their ice cream, and she's there talking to me about my experience, if I've had good experience with the Chilean women, and I'm like, what is going on here? And like, I'm looking at them for any sort of help, and they're just sitting there laughing at me. So then we made our way up the hill, and this is the statue of Virgin Mary. And again, it was just a very peaceful place. You saw the overlook that we had of the whole city from there. And also up there was another little chapel, and this chapel is actually where Pope John Paul I gave a sermon during the time when they were in a dictatorship. There was a time in the Chilean government during the Clinton administration that a dictator took over Chile, and he just killed a bunch of people because he felt like it. They had a human rights museum that we went to actually in Santiago, and there was a whole wall, probably 30 foot high and 20 foot across, just of pictures of all these people that he killed or that went missing during his reign. And it's said that Pope John Paul's sermon was the one that kind of made this guy step down from power, because I think he kind of kicked everybody into gear, being like, this, what he's doing is not right. And then this is us getting back to the Omaha airport. I was the only one who didn't wear sunscreen, and you can see that because I'm tanner than everybody else. But other than that, that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, I would love to answer those, but that's all I have.
Would you go back?
To climb the mountain, or just for this experience? That's the interesting thing, because all of this was so meticulously organized for us. Actually, when we got on the first airplane in Omaha, my professor told me, sleep when you can, because you're not going to get much sleep the rest of the time. And that was the case with our classes. And when we were in Port Williams, we were up till, a lot of times we were up till like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd have to get up at 7 or 8. And I was always up for everybody else, so it was like 5 or 6 for me. And one night we all decided it would be a good idea to stay up until like 4, and then our plane left at like 6. So that was the other thing. When we left Port Williams, the airport, we got there, and the airport was probably no bigger than up here. You just walk in, and you're like, this is it. And so we're sitting there, and we're sitting there, and then they're like, okay, you can go on the plane now. And in the United No, we walked right out onto the runway, and I actually had a black trash bag full of my dirty clothes, and I'm like, this is not going to pass through security. And they just let me walk right on the plane. And they're like, you can sit wherever you want. We don't have assigned seats or anything. And I'm like, this is scary. So, but it definitely was. I don't know if I would go back. It was an interesting experience for like the first time. I definitely would like to explore other parts of the world. But I think because it was so well organized and I got to see so much, I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. And you just have to know so much Spanish to be able to do everything that we did.
Were the people friendly, quite friendly, or?
The Chilean people?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. Like I said, the people at the mom and pop grocery store, the people in Puerto Williams were really, really nice. I don't know how many people lived on the island, but everyone said hi to us. When we got up into Santiago, things like that, we got called a gringo quite a bit, which is just a name for somebody who's not Spanish. And a lot of times we would go to like shopkeepers, and the wife would be like, "Oh, you deal with the gringos," and then the husband would come and he's like, "Hello, how can I help you?" And so I mean that was when we got up into the bigger cities. They weren't as nice, but I think the people in Puerto Williams understood how much that program, because they built a what's the word I'm looking for? They built like a study center in the center of the island, and it was the highest building in the island, so you could literally walk all over the island and then know where you had to go to get back to. And I think they understood what the program had done for the island to kind of boost economy. So I think they were really, really nice. But I mean, I wouldn't say anybody was like super mean to us, but yeah.
Kind of tell about the nightlife. Did you guys experience?
Oh, so our last night in Santiago, our tour guide was from Chile. Yeah, he was from Santiago actually. So our last night, our professor was like, you can go out, you can do whatever you want, because the drinking age was 18, so she's like, you guys can just go crazy. And she's like, you don't need to tell me where you're going, just make sure you're back so we're in time to leave. So we got back to our hostel in Santiago at about 11. And the only channel that had English was HBO, so it had a bunch of like movies on it. That was the only channel on TV that we understood, so we always watched HBO. They're always like the same 6 movies too. But so we were waiting for our tour guide to get back because he lived in Santiago, so we went to get something from his house. Came back, the guy was so stoned. He was so high. And he's like, are you guys ready? And we're like, sure. So we're like, we're walking with this guy, and he's like, does it bother you if I smoke? And he had smoked cigarettes around us. And we're like, yeah, no big deal. Pulls out a joint, starts smoking this joint, and we're like, is that illegal? And he's like, well, the police, it's not really legal or illegal. If the police see you, they'll just tell you to put it out. I'm like, no big deal. So we're like walking. He's smoking his joint. We're walking. We're like, where should we go? And he's like, wherever you want to go. And we're like, there was one of the guys that we were with, the guy in the blue sweatshirt. He had been drinking, so he was kind of gone. So we're like, okay, we can't trust you. So me and the guy in the beard were writing down every turn we took so we could get back to the hospital. We're like, this guy is so far gone, he's not going to get us back alive. So we're like walking down the street, and 2 guys walked by us and we're like, hey man, do you have a light? The guy was so stoned, he took his joint out, gave the guys his joint. They started smoking his joint. We just kept walking. And I was really concerned. So then we get to this reggae bar, and we walk in, and our tour guide's name was Brian. He's like, this place is hopping. You guys are going to love it. We walk in, there's 3 people on the dance floor. We're like, all right, Brian, is this hopping for you? And he's like, it will get better. It will get better. And we're like, okay. So we're kind of just chilling in the corner. We're like, we don't want to cause any problems or anything. And so it's been like 45 minutes. People kind of start showing up, and we're hearing loud noises on the other side. There was like, it was like an L-shaped dance floor, and then there were doors on the other side. So we walked over to the other doors, and we're like, what's going on out here? There's just a giant parking lot where everyone is out there smoking weed. And I open the door and just see this and just turn around. There's just like this haze of smoke. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I could get high just standing out there. But, so our tour guide is out there, and he's just having a heck of a time just out there, and we're like, oh gosh, oh man. So, the guy in the blue sweatshirt was like, I want to stay for a little bit, I want to dance, I want to wait for some people to show up. I'm like, fine. So we sat in the corner, and this guy walks up to me. His name is Ernesto. And he walks up to me and is trying to be my best friend. He tried to sell me 3 different types of drugs in the hour that we were there. He was a really nice guy. I mean, it's fine. And he had saran wrap. He had just gotten a fresh tattoo, and he had saran wrap over his tattoo. And he just kept hugging me, and he's like, I will buy you a beer, or I will buy you shots. And I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I'm like, I got to get up in the morning to go back home. I'm like, it's no big deal. He's like, I'll get you cocaine, you'll be ready to go. And I'm like, I'm really good, thank you, though. So we're like, okay, we really need to go now. So we go back to this lot. Our tour guide is passed out. He is so high. He is in this parking lot. He's face down. We're like, what do we do now? So we go out there. We pick him up. We're like, we gotta go. And he's like, okay, we will go. His eyes are bright red. So we're like walking back, and we're like, what is that smell? It was us. We were out there for maybe a minute or two, and we reeked of pot, and we're like, great, we're going to try to get back to the United States of America, and we smell like pot. So we went back. It's probably 4 o'clock in the morning at this point. We knock on our professor's door, and we're like, look, we just want to tell you right now, we didn't do anything. We were just there, and there was a bunch of people smoking pot. She's like, you'll be fine, you're fine. So we get through customs in the United States. We landed in Houston at 4:45 in the morning. They have the drug dogs walking around. They just stand there. We got those clothes in our bag, and it was like, hopefully we buried them deep enough. And that was like a Thursday night, and there was all these people. I'm like, what are these people doing with their lives if this is what they do on a Thursday? So that was probably the scariest moment, because Santiago is massive. Like, nothing in the United States compares to how big Santiago is. Like, probably the closest thing would be New York City. That kind of even pales in comparison. So we just wrote down every turn, and we're like, well, we hope we get back in time to catch our flight. And I do have some things that I kept. I have some money and a couple other touristy things that I have up here, so if you want to take a look at that before you head out, that's fine. Otherwise, thank you so much for letting me come speak to you.